So what happened was I went in for my 38-week um, prenatal appointment with my midwife on the 18th. It was a Friday. And she had told me the week before that the baby was big, he was ready, I was totally due at any time. Technically, if your pregnancy is past 37 weeks, is what she told me, then they're technically considered full term. Everything should be fine and healthy, all that stuff. That they pretty much expect babies past 37 weeks to be really good size, able to breathe, able to suck, able to do all the things they need to do. So she told me that at the next appointment, if I wanted to, if I was ready to be done, which I was, that she would do what's called sweeping of the membranes, which is not the most pleasant thing. Although I will say that lots of people told me that it hurt really, really, really bad, and it was so uncomfortable, and that they cramped for hours afterwards, and I didn't really have that experience. It was really no worse than like a regular cervical exam. It just took a little longer. And basically what it is they go in there and separate the sac, the amniotic fluid, the sac that the baby's in. They separate it from the wall of the uterus. And by breaking all those little blood vessels, there's no nerves or anything in the blood vessels, but by breaking all the little vessels and things that are connecting that to the wall of the uterus, it puts out a type of hormone that causes you to go into labor. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. It only works if your body is ready to go into labor and if the baby's ready. So that's why she told me that it's not dangerous to do. It's kind of a way of natural induction, but it will only induce labor if your body is ready, which mine was, because I've been having contractions, as you guys know, since like 31 weeks on. He'd been trying to come, and we've been trying to keep him in for that long, and it was just a very long road. And at the point that I was, at 38 weeks, I was very uncomfortable because he was sitting super, super low. I could feel him down there, like in my pelvic bones, and yeah, I was ready. And she estimated his birth weight to probably be between 8 and 8.5 pounds already. So if I would have carried him to full term, to a full 40 weeks, he would have been a gigantic baby. So anyway, so she swept my membranes at, was it probably about 11 a.m. I had that done. My husband was there with me for that appointment because a lot of times what will happen is your water will just break by the process of her doing that. That didn't happen, but she did advise us to go walk around the hospital for a few hours, stay close, because I could go spontaneously immediately into labor, or it could take, a day up to 48 hours. And she said if after 48 hours nothing had happened, then chances are it wasn't going to work. The sweep wasn't going to do it. So we walked around the hospital for a while. We had lunch. We went to the mall. We walked around the mall. This whole time, basically, I was having contractions. From the time she swept the membranes, I started having them, and they were like 2 to 5 minutes apart. Like they were coming on top of one another, but they weren't taking my breath away. They weren't super, super painful. They were painful. I noticed them. They were more than like the Braxton Hicks contractions, which, by the way, my midwife told me there really is no such thing as a fake like Braxton Hicks contractions. They're all contractions. A contraction is a contraction. And the only difference is that some produce, cause you to, what's the word? Cause your cervix to change, cause that kind of reaction, and some don't do anything. So, but they're all contractions, and they all get you closer to having the baby. So, we walked basically all day long, and it was really super uncomfortable because the baby was so low, and I was having contractions. We came home eventually, and oh yeah, like on the way home, this is another funny little side story. So I was unsure if we should even leave the hospital or not because I was still contracting, and Josh kept saying, no, we need to go home, we need to get your car home, because we had both cars at the appointment since he'd met me there. He came from work. So he's like, no, we need to get the van home, and then we'll just come back later if you're still in labor. I was like, okay. So me, being Superwoman, drove myself home in a minivan while in labor. And on the way home, my van overheated. I've never had any problems with the car. Never has it left me stranded. But of course, as I am in labor, unsure when hard labor is going to kick in, I was completely stranded because my van overheated and I could not drive it. So I had to pull over. Josh was already gone. I don't have any cell phone to contact him. So I'm on the side of the road in the middle of downtown Portland. with a broken down van. I ended up like flagging over two very terrified looking bicyclists because I'm like hugely pregnant, and my van, the hood of my van is open and there's like smoke coming out, and so they were looking very scared to come over, and so I just basically used one of their cell phones and called my husband to come and rescue me. And the van's all fixed now. We got it repaired and everything. It wasn't a huge deal, but yeah, the 40 minutes or so that I waited there on the side of the road, contracting away with a broken down car, wasn't very fun. So we went home, we relaxed, and the contractions sort of laid off for a while. Weren't really sure, maybe it wasn't going to work. I called the midwife and kind of kept her updated. She wanted me to keep her posted. She was the one that was on call that night if I were to go into labor, which was great. So she said that a lot of times that would happen, that things would slow down and that I needed to take the time to rest and relax. And so that's what I did. I just sort of laid on the couch, and it was probably only a couple hours later that they came on again, and they were a lot stronger. We went into the bedroom and just laid down, and I remember thinking and telling my husband that I totally understand why people would want to do a home birth, because it's so hard to know when to actually go into the hospital, because I'd been having contractions all day and they were close together. But at this point they'd spread out a little bit more, but they were so much more painful that it was a totally different thing. I was feeling it in my back, and so we spent another couple hours sort of laboring at home. My family was all calling me and asking me what the heck I was doing at home, that I needed to get into the hospital. But no, the midwife always had told me that the plan is to stay at home as long as possible because you're comfortable there and things can progress a little easier. And then by the time you get to the hospital, there's less work to do. So that was the whole idea. But this one contraction hit me and just rocked through my body. At that point, I knew, okay, it's time to go. I just sort of rolled over and told Josh, let's go. It's time to go to the hospital. It was about 10:30 p.m. So we get in the car. And of course, like the second we get in the truck to go into Portland, it's about a 30-minute drive or so, I am having super hard contractions every 2 minutes. Like they are coming hard, and I'm having to breathe through them, and I'm like gripping everything and like tensing up, wondering if we're even going to get there on time. Needless to say, we made it there on time. They wheeled me up. We had to go into the emergency room entrance of the hospital because labor and delivery was closed since it was after hours. So by the time we checked in, it was like 11 o'clock, I think, around 11. They get me into the room, hooked me up onto monitors, waited for the midwife to get there, and the nurse was like wanting to do all this stuff to me, wanting to do an IV and everything. I'm like, no, I'm doing an all-natural birth. I don't want any drugs. I don't need an IV. I'm going to have a water birth. My midwife's coming. Please don't hook me up to anything, right? Yeah, that was a pain in the butt to have to deal with her. But once my midwife got there, she was awesome because she sort of took over and like handled her and let me do my own thing. And so anyway, I won't go into all the horrible, gory, bloody details of the birth, but basically I was there for like 11, 12. He was born at 1:15. So from 11 to 1:15, that was the time that I was laboring in the hospital. They tried to fill up the gigantic birthing pool for me. The second my midwife got there, she started working on that. The tub still wasn't full enough by the time I was pushing, and he came out in like 3 pushes. Like he was ready to come out. So I did it though with no drugs, nothing, absolutely nothing, not even the water to numb the pain, nothing. So yeah, it was kind of like pretty hardcore and came pretty fast. And I joke around with people that I gave birth doggy style because I was like standing up on the edge of the bed when I started pushing. And the great thing about midwives, you guys, is that they are so not like OB doctors. They're not like up in their business checking your cervix every like hour or whatever. She checked me once when I got to the hospital, and I was 7 centimeters. That was the only time. From that point on, she said, listen to your body. It'll tell you what to do. You'll know when to push. And I did. Started pushing. With my first push, my water broke all over everybody. Splash. My husband jumped back. It was not a pretty baby story birth by any means. There was fluids flinging everywhere, and I mean, it was not pretty at all. She basically pushed me, said, climb up onto the bed, climb up on your hands and knees. I think that'll be most comfortable for you, because the whole time I could not lay on my back. I was having pretty hard back labor. So I climbed up on my hands and knees on the bed, pushed 3 times, and he was out. So I was going to show him to you guys, but he's sleeping right now. I just fed him, and so I didn't want to upset him. He's in Daddy's arms. But I will try and put some photos at the end of this video for those of you who haven't seen him on Facebook. And maybe next video I will have him in. And you know, there's a lot of questions I know a lot of you guys have about being pregnant after gastric bypass or going through labor after gastric bypass or anything like that. And I think I'm going to make one video to address all of these questions. So if you have a specific question about pregnancy, about anything having to do with pregnancy after gastric bypass and want to ask, feel free, send me a message, put it in a comment below. I will try and compile them all and make a Q&A video because it is kind of uncharted territory for a lot of people, and I know that a lot of you have the bypass with the specific intention of being able to have a family. Maybe you have PCOS or other infertility issues due to being overweight. I wasn't really trying to get pregnant with this child, so I can't for sure say if I had any infertility issues when I was larger because I wasn't really trying to get pregnant then either. So, but what I do know is that it was pretty effortless. I mean, once I had lost the weight, that I got pregnant. Obviously, effortless. It was a surprise. So, I know one thing that a lot of you keep asking is about my weight, and did I gain a lot of weight during the pregnancy, and how much have I lost? And to be honest with you, I can't tell you exactly how much I've lost today after giving birth. My son is exactly 2 weeks old today. But I know I gained 27 pounds total throughout the pregnancy, and that was like from day one up to the Friday before I gave birth, which was like almost the same day because I gave birth early in the morning on Saturday. So yeah, 27 pounds total. And my son weighed 7 pounds 15 ounces at birth, so he was a really good size. The midwife said that he would have been 8 pounds had he not peed and pooped immediately when he came out before they weighed him. So basically he was essentially an 8-pound baby. Then you account for the placenta, all the extra fluids, and all that stuff that comes out. But I don't really know what I weigh now. I was supposed to go in for my 2-week postpartum checkup yesterday, and I missed it because we slept in. I was expecting Ross to wake me up. Oh, the name! The name that you've all been waiting for that I've been keeping a secret. My baby's name is Roswell Brooks Jessup, and he's going by Ross. So none of you guessed it. I think maybe one of you had guessed Ross at one point, and that's kind of his nickname. So anyway, but that wasn't his full name, so that's why I didn't tell you. But so Roswell, that's the name that we chose. Yeah. So with my weight, 27 pounds for the whole pregnancy, I don't think it was too bad. And you guys, I'm nursing, and I feel like it's like falling off already. I'm already back into my pre-pregnancy clothes. I don't know weight-wise exactly how much I've lost. I'm sure the number is still up a little bit from what I was before I got pregnant, but size-wise, I'm really close at only 2 weeks postpartum. So if you are afraid of getting pregnant because of the weight issue, because of how hard you worked to get it off, I know that was my major, major fear in the beginning when I first found out that I was pregnant, that I was going to undo all the work that I just did. Don't be afraid. As long as you're conscientious about everything, about your nutrition, you will be just fine.